About 10 months ago, Robson Conceicao faced his first and only defeat against the young, great fighter Oscar Valdez in a controversial decision which saw Oscar Valdez win by a wide, unanimous decision victory, even though the fight was hard fought and relatively close. Then later on, the young, up-and-coming phenom Shakur Stevenson beat Oscar Valdez in a one-sided, very skillful victory. Now they face each other in what should be an action-packed, very competitive fight. Who will win? The Average Josh Podcast. Subscribe. Alright, let's talk about the Shakur Stevenson versus Robson Conceicao fight. So, if you've been watching any of the news about this fight, you would know that Shakur Stevenson didn't make weight. It is what it is. The young man, he came in, he was 1.6 pounds overweight for this fight. And because of that, he lost his both of his titles. He's fined, and he went ahead and said that, you know, it's just not comfortable for him to make the weight anymore. It's just his body is matured to the point where getting down to 130 pounds just isn't something feasible for him to do anymore healthily. So he's going to go ahead and move up to 135. It is what it is. I don't condone people missing weight. I think it gives you an unfair advantage. And I'm going to keep the same energy with Shakur Stevenson. But if Oscar Valdez can take diuretics in order to make weight and not be punished, I can go ahead and get past it if Shakur Stevenson also has trouble making weight, didn't make weight, but was actually punished. So let's go ahead and move on past that. Now, how do I see this fight going? I see this fight going similarly to how the Oscar Valdez fight went. I see it going similarly to how the Jamel Herring fight went. Which is just, I see Shakur Stevenson winning this fight easily. Well, not necessarily easily, because I think that Robson Conceicao is the greatest challenge that Shakur Stevenson has faced so far, because he's a very good boxer. He has a very good jab. He's very good at alternating his punches from the head to the body. He's a good body puncher, which is something that you need when you fight a slick southpaw like Shakur Stevenson. But the difference between him and Shakur Stevenson is that Shakur Stevenson is just miles above him in regards to talent. When I think of Shakur Stevenson, I see him as one of the most talented boxers in boxing right now. I would probably say one of the most talented under the age of like 25 would be, number one, I'd probably say is Jaron Ennis. Number two, I'd probably say would be either Shakur Stevenson or David Benavidez, because people forget how young David Benavidez is. And then number four, maybe Virgil Ortiz Jr. And then someone like Devin Haney, number five. But you know, or that's maybe not necessarily be in that order, but you know, people like that, people like Virgil Ortiz, David Benavidez, Jaron Ennis, and people of that caliber who are under 25. And Shakur Stevenson, he's 20, who are 25 and under. And Shakur Stevenson, because he's that exceptional talent, I think that it'll kind of be similar to how the Oscar Valdez fight is, except for I do see not Jamel Herring, but I do see Robson Conceicao being able to land more on Shakur Stevenson than any other fighter who he's fought so far. Because Shakur Stevenson, he's very much a fantastic defensive fighter. He has a mastery of range. He has a mastery of body manipulation to be able to turn his opponent when they're in the corner for him to escape. He's a master at throwing his jab out to confuse his opponent. When he was, just like when he was fighting Oscar Valdez, the biggest thing that he had going for him was the fact that Oscar Valdez was visibly confused in that fight. Because you got to imagine from Oscar Valdez's perspective, when you're fighting a guy whose defense and skill and quickness and reflexes are that advanced, it is going to be confusing. It is going to be frustrating, because you're throwing these hooks to the body, you're throwing your jab out, you're throwing just shots that you're used to, especially someone like Oscar Valdez. You know, he's followed a lot, who's, you know, he's had a lot of experience in the gym and the amateurs and in the professionals, so he's very much used to these shots landing. So you're used to, you know, you're throwing a freaking right or left hook to the body and it landing. You're used to being able to pressure opponents and being able to get into their bodies and really being able to throw combinations. But when you fight someone like Shakur Stevenson, the second you try to throw that hook, he steps back a few inches and lands his own counter shot on you. The second you try to press into his body, he manipulates your body and have you going into the ropes. The second you try to push forward, you think that you got him, he moves back at the split second as well, and he'll also keep tagging you. And also his jab is so quick that it's extremely hard to react to. So when you're fighting a guy like that, and you're so used to being able to land these shots, being able to get people, being able to engage your opponent in the way that you want to, even if you have to take some shots, because like Oscar Valdez, he has that machismo Mexican style where he's willing to take the shots if he can land them. But the problem is you're taking shots, but you're not really landing that many. So then you start getting confused, and then you're like, okay, I can't just go straight forward and beat this guy, because every time I do, I'm punching air. Every time I do, he moves. Every time I do, he's countering me. I have to think of something else. And when that's all you know, or even if it's not all you know, if the person that you're fighting against has such a high boxing IQ that they're gonna make adjustments on the fly and you won't be able to figure them out, then you're gonna basically be in no man's land, constantly getting tagged with shots, constantly being made to look stupid, and essentially looking like a below average fighter when you're not. You're a good fighter, but this person's boxing IQ, their defense, and their reflexes is so great that they take a good fighter and they make him look like a below average fighter. And that's exactly what he did to Jamel Herring, and that's exactly what he did to Oscar Valdez. And I have the sneaking suspicion that's what he's gonna do tonight against Robson Conceição. So to keep this video short and to the point, I see Shakur Stevenson beating Robson Conceição by a unanimous decision, but I do see it being a hard, tough fight, because like I said, Robson Conceição is very rangy. He's quick. You know, he doesn't have nearly as good as a footwork as Shakur Stevenson, but most boxers, I would say 90% of boxers don't anyway, so that's really not too much of a detriment to him. He's just fighting a guy with better footwork. But I do think he'll be able to land those shots. And also, you know, Shakur Stevenson is coming in there overweight, so he's going to be bigger than he normally fights at, which is going to give him an advantage as well. Now another thing that I would have to say that Robson Conceição is fighting against is he's fighting against boxing politics. You saw the scorecards that were against him when he actually fought Oscar Valdez. So when Oscar Valdez and Robson Conceição fought, I thought the fight was way closer than the judges even said. And if people were to argue that Robson Conceição won, I wouldn't argue against that. I think that there's a very good chance that he did win that fight. But because Robson Conceição is a Brazilian fighter fighting on American turf, he doesn't really seem to have a big push from Top Rank. They're not really pushing him like that. He just seems like a guy that they put in there to get beat by their better fighters, to build up their fighters. He's very much fighting against boxing politics. And when you got a guy like Shakur Stevenson, who is American, who is much more marketable, and is fighting a guy who is less marketable, and he seems to be the lesser talent, Bob Arum and Top Rank and the boxing politics, he's gonna have to fight against that as well. Because when he was fighting the Oscar Valdez fight, he had a BS point taken away for just tapping on the back of his head. It wasn't even a rabbit punch. It was like he was doing that as like a taunt or something. And all these things happened to him. And then he had some crazy off scorecards. So he's fighting against that. So he's fighting a guy who's quicker than him, has a better boxing IQ than him, has more talented than him, and is on the side of boxing and is on the better side of boxing politics. Even more so now that he's going to move up to 135, because at 135 you have Top Rank has Lomachenko. Top Rank has a deal with Devin Haney, where they're working with Devin Haney closely. So Bob Arum is probably looking his chops, thinking about the fights that he can make with Shakur Stevenson that can make him money, because they're in-house fights, so he gets to keep all the promotional money, like the fight with Lomachenko, like a fight with Devin Haney, like a fight with what's the Japanese guy's name? Nakatani. You know, so he has a whole like stable full of fighters for this man to fight at 135 that'll probably be more competitive and more interesting than the fights that he can make at 130. So yeah, I really do think that with all those things that I just said, that it's pretty much gonna be a unanimous decision victory for Shakur Stevenson, unless Robson Conceição can hit him with something really nasty and knock him out. But that's all I have to say about that, and I'm out.